Hello and welcome to 2024 Green Bay Packers team preview. Today we're going to talk about if Jordan Love's encore to what wound up being a fantastic first year as a starter, can it be just as good? If the Josh Jacobs experience will yield newfound RB1 fantasy results in Green Bay, who to prioritize in a quietly loaded wide receiver room, all that and much more coming up in the next 30 minutes. Strap in, we're here to talk all things Green Bay Packers. I'm your host, Ian Hartz, and joining me, as always, Fantasy Life Director of Analytics and all-around baller, Dwain, the Rock McFarland. And Dwain, I know you had a, not front row seat, but a pretty good seat to the Packers highlight of last season, a 48-32 beatdown over the Cowboys in Jerry World. And yes, it came out of nowhere from the standpoint that, you have the 2 seed versus 7 seed and, Cowboys at home. Weren't expecting that to happen. But if you were paying attention, the Packers that, again, were really taking the field over the second half of last year compared to the first half, much different team. Actually only trailed the 49ers in EPA per play and yards per play again during the second half of the season. And obviously a big reason why was the breakout performance of Jordan Love, who, Dwain, for the first 2 months of the year, man, was not a good quarterback. We're talking about weeks 1 through 8 versus weeks 9 to the divisional round. Yards per attempt went from 6.4 to 7.8. He was 32nd among 35 quarterbacks in completion percentage over expected in the first half, went all the way up to second down the stretch. So finished the year as the QB5 in fantasy points per game. Do you think the guy we get in 2024 and beyond is something in the middle of that? Or are you pretty confident that, again, that world beater we saw throughout November, December, and even into January is here to stay?
I think it's, if you're being logical, it's like something in the middle, but you've clearly seen there's a ceiling possibility here with Jordan Love that is really high. It's kind of gotten off the chain a little bit. I've seen some of these convos that like he would be the second pick off the board. Like that's
chill out with that.
That's too far. But I will say he has shown the kind of ceiling that gets people thinking about things like that. Yeah. So I don't necessarily disagree with the thought that, oh man, should I consider Jordan Love? I think you should be thinking about that, but I don't think he's the guy that you put there. When you do that, you're trying to get clicks whenever you're putting something like that out there. But looking at Jordan Love, man, yes, I had a front row seat. And the thing that amazed me the most, is just all the big time throws, which he was great at last year. Go over to PFF, big time throw rate of 5.4%. But I had a front row seat to those. Everything looked covered, buying a little bit of extra time, whether it was in the pocket, whether it was rolling out, letting his guy uncover, being on the same page, and then hitting him. It was like playing a guy in Madden, back in the day that was real good at using that playmaker feature, right? Every time they just roll out and then they would use the playmaker button and make the receiver all of a sudden run the other way. Of course, your DB, back then AI was stupid and he wouldn't turn around. You would have to manually switch over that guy to cover. It's like that. That's how it felt. And I would feel like Micah Parsons would be right there and Jordan Love would do just the right thing. So I'm probably a little bit, biased because I did have that front row seat to that. That's a very small sample, but I was amazed watching Jordan Love play. I did feel like I was watching Patrick Mahomes. So having said all that, he's a guy that I definitely want exposure to in fantasy drafts this year, Ian. If he ran pure in an area last year, it was definitely touchdowns. 5.5% of his passes went for touchdowns. But again, that's not an outlier season. Right. An outlier season is like when you throw 7 to 9%. You're usually going to come down from that number. So it could still be sustainable. But 32 touchdown passes, man, and 11 picks, almost 4,200 yards through the air. Yeah, Love. If what we saw towards the end of last season, if that's for real, man, the Packers are going to be really tough to deal with for a long time.
And it's interesting because despite all that success, that became, high profile, especially after the Cowboys victory there. He's really still getting pushed down the fantasy board where, no, he's not going to be costing you that big of a, draft pick. Right now, QB 10, pick 98 ADP. That's affordable. We have CJ Stroud, who finished worse than, Love last season. He was the QB 8, I believe. Love was the QB 5, going nearly 3 rounds ahead of him. So honestly, Love gives you a little more juice on the ground than what guys like Stroud and Burrow do. And those are the, again, pocket passers being priced up more. So last season, 247 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. Only Kyler Murray and Brock Purdy averaged more yards per scramble than Jordan Love. no third down is safe. And I know that was one of the most infuriating parts that Cowboys fans had to deal with.
Killer.
And just overall on the season, guys, tied with Jared Goff for the league lead in first down completions on 3rd and 10 or more with 14. So over the last, freaking 30 plus years, since 1992, only Packers quarterbacks to start at least 10 games. Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan Love. Yeah, sorry, Bears fans. I think they did it again. So I'm with you, Dwayne. Jordan Love. Honestly, for me, right after him, Jaden Daniels, we've talked kind of about his, just dual threat fantasy football cheat code possibility. Caleb Williams, we'll get to in our Bears preview, but that's pretty much the group. Love, Daniels, and Caleb, where if I'm in one fantasy league, I really want to have a quarterback. I mean, maybe I got one before, but that's kind of the line where I'm like, man, if I don't get one here, I think you're losing that kind of top tier, top 3 upside.
Yeah, I agree. It's right there with Dak, Kyler, Love, and then Jaden Daniels. And you could argue one of these pocket passers is going to step up and be part of that group, right?
Sure.
Whether it's Tua, Jared Goff, we've already talked about. Somebody's going to step up, but I'm with you. That's the spot. And, the other thing I love about, Love, so no pun intended there, is just like it's very easy to build out, your stacks with Jordan Love for best ball. I mean, the only receiver going ahead of him is Jaden Reed on his own offense. The only other skill player going ahead of him is Josh Jacobs. So there's just lots of ways that you can set it up. I will say, I feel like every time I am trying to set it up and I've got it set up with the other teams and everything, someone else just takes Jordan Love without having anything from the team. But that makes sense because you can turn around and get the other guys after you've already taken Jordan Love.
Really is. I mean, for an offense that I think most people expect to be among the league's top 10 best, quite affordable here in Fantasyland. You mentioned the one piece, though, that is not so affordable. That is new RB1 Josh Jacobs. Got paid, but as is the case with most NFL contracts, maybe not quite as much money as what you initially hear. Yes, he did get a 4-year, $48 million deal, but just 12 and a half of that is guaranteed. The Packers could feasibly get out of the deal by next offseason if they want. So that's kind of what they've done with Aaron Jones's contract and stuff over the years. I know Green Bay has their own way of doing things, but again, you hear the 4 years, $48 million, you're just like, that's so much money. Why would they not feature him every single game? When in reality, DeAndre Swift and Joe Mixon actually got more guaranteed money in their respective new deals. So really, Dwayne, it just comes down to, was last year a fluke with Josh Jacobs? Because pick any advanced metric you want, man. He was horrific last year, and it really came out of nowhere. I mean, no, he never had the highest yards per carry numbers, for most of his career with the Raiders, but this was consistently one of the league's best rushers in terms of missed tackles forced and yards after contact. And man, just really lost his way last year. Packers fans, I know you guys aren't big fans of AJ Dillon. Do not post Dillon and Jacobs, advanced metrics next to each other if you want to continue having a good day. So as much as we want to make fun of Austin Eckler for that, 13-mile-per-hour run against the Packers last year, before Eckler had that high ankle sprain, he actually posted a faster ball carrier speed than anything that Jacobs was able to manage last season. So all that to say, Dwayne, last year we saw Alvin Kamara, Travis Etienne, Saquon Barkley, Rashad White, and Joe Mixon all post top 12 numbers despite not averaging more than 4 yards per carry because of one pretty cool thing: volume. How much of it do you expect Jacobs to get in this Packers offense?
Well, look, the most sticky thing year over year for running backs is actually their volume, their attempts, and their targets. And Josh Jacobs has been pretty good in both of those. Yep. But there is a historical major signal loss whenever you change teams. And this has not just been for backups and guys moving. It's often been for guys that actually got paid money. You've done a lot of great research, Ian, about the contracts and how it doesn't really mean a lot at the end of the day. And we've also had it where it's been guys getting paid that were former first-round picks that had really big roles before. So somebody from this group of Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, all these Aaron Jones, all these guys that change teams, someone's not going to have the role that we think. And I do think that there's a chance that it is Josh Jacobs. You mentioned the inefficiency. That can be fluky, year over year. But this is also a coaching staff, to your point, that's been willing to rotate. So I think there's a little bit of risk here. I'm more willing to take Josh Jacobs now because I have him projected for 14.3 PPR points per game. So now he's going in the range of Travis Etienne, who's at 14.2, Isaiah Pacheco, 14.5, Joe Mixon at 14.2. The problem early on was Josh Jacobs was going in. He got to a point where he was going in the late second round, early third, and that was just too high right after free agency.
That was my entire problem with Jacobs. He was in this other tier compared to those guys. And it was like, what is so different about Jacobs versus Mixon versus ETN? And lo and behold, a good month or so later, we are fine. So, yeah, not going out of my way to, draft all these guys in every draft. But hey, man, when I look at this kind of the roster constructions, having done a lot of drafts, like for your money's worth, Dwain, like have you felt better about using a round 1 or round 2 pick on a running back? You're coming away with Bijan or Brees, let's say, and then going 3 straight wide receivers, or getting 3 badass wide receivers to start and then landing on someone like Jacobs or ETN, sometimes even 4, man, because they fall into round 5. Like, again, it matters and everything is different, but I sometimes, man, you had a great article on it last year, I remember, where it was like Madison and Mixon were these cheap. I know Madison didn't work out, everyone. Hindsight's a little bit better with this, but it's like when you can get the round 4, round 5 workhorse RB and a good offense. I mean, these aren't dead zone running backs, Dwayne. We're talking about the Packers lead back.
Yeah, I mean, there's risk that comes with these profiles, but it's not like they all miss. So, and it's all opportunity cost driven. I'll just say right now, you can wait on running back as long as you want, pretty much this year, and you're going to end up feeling okay as long as you eventually do shift gears. If you have a lot of wide receivers, the mistake I'm seeing people make is they start off with 5 wide receivers in a row. They take 1 running back, and then they come back and take 3 more wide receivers. That's overkill. You're now taking wide receivers in the actual area of the draft where people are gift wrapping running backs that, used to you had to take in round 3. Now you're getting to take in round 7, 8, and 9. So you can wait as long as you want on running back. Just remember that whatever you've already invested to earlier, you need to switch away from that position and shift to another one. And running back is honestly, it's the easiest one where when I wait, Ian, I feel like I just never get cut off. I never feel bad. I'm never like, oh my God, I'm not going to get my running backs. I hope this pick goes my way. No, it's like, oh, they took that guy. I'll take this other one. Oh, he took him too. I still got this other guy I like. So running back is definitely deep.
And that is the thing. I like that zone, but you're right. If I miss out on that, if I say, I want Anthony Richardson here or tight end at this time, waited on another couple rounds and we got the David Montgomerys, the Steelers running backs of the world who, maybe we don't feel quite as good about. They are going later for a reason, but yeah, I'm with you. Don't need to go out of your way for any of these running backs. I will be prioritizing those other positions early. All right, moving on. Suddenly, one of the deepest wide receiver rooms in the NFL resides in Green Bay, Dwayne. Aaron Rodgers must be, I don't know what Aaron Rodgers is thinking these days, to be honest with you, but maybe he's cursing himself.
He doesn't know either.
Yeah, maybe he's cursing himself for, leaving just as this room got pretty awesome. League low, 11.5 million devoted to the group, but my goodness, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and Dontavian Wicks really forming one of the league's better rooms. And hey, shout out to Bill Melton as well, who made some big plays last season. So they might not have a true wide receiver 1. I know, other fan bases, I see them get annoyed on Twitter, balking at the idea that the Packers are so good when they don't have a 1. But again, 1 through 4 and even 5, if you want to really give Melton his flowers, this is one of the deeper groups in the league. The question is, where is the ball going to be going most often? So, Dwayne, I know, you've been poring over the projections and everything. When I was looking at this group and just trying to find the best sort of split to expect, what to take from and then look ahead to 2024. It seemed like weeks 5 through 13 when Christian Watson was mostly healthy might be our best bet. During those weeks, we saw Doubs and Watson be the full-time wide receivers, 83 and 82% route rates. Jaden Reed still there, but, coming off the field in 2 wide receiver sets, a 63% route rate, and Dontavian Wicks down there at 34%. So actually saw Watson and Reed lead the way in PPR points per game. How do you see it going, though, in the year 2024? Because I know there's a lot of Dontavian Wicks truthers out there hoping that, things are going to go differently here ahead of next season.
Yeah, man, I wish I had a crystal ball because this is one where if I just knew the health of Christian Watson and whether or not he's going to stay on the field, it makes a huge difference here. So last year when Watson was healthy, he was their wide receiver 1, 23% target share, 20% targets per route run. You look at Romeo Doubs, 17% target share when you had Christian Watson available. And then you look at Jaden Reed, man, 13% target share whenever Christian Watson was available. You mentioned the other two guys. Dontavian Wicks was still there wasn't a big enough sample that I can give you that number because he was rotating. He was in a part-time role. And then you mentioned it. You still had even Bo Melton, was a guy late in the season. So I don't know that there's an alpha here, but if I were to say the 2 that I think are most likely, I still think it's Watson or Reed. Dontavian Wicks obviously has that small sample profile that we like. Sometimes that works out. Sometimes that doesn't. It's funny. everybody gets all in on a player. Oh man, Dontavian Wicks is going to break out. Like if you go really look at the odds for these guys with these small samples, yeah, it's better than having nothing to point to. But it doesn't always work out. So Watson is the guy that I do find myself drafting the most at cost because I feel he's demonstrated a ceiling and I really like his price. I can get him typically in round, was he going 7 right now? Yeah, typically round 7. So I think Watson is my favorite, but I invest in all of them. And that doesn't mean I don't invest in Jaden Reed either. Like I take plenty of Jaden Reed. Even though I like Christian Watson better at cost, like I want exposure to all these guys, but I would still say Watson would be my flag plant if I had to pick one Packer wide receiver.
Good rule of thumb, especially in best ball drafts, but also, just in general, I think when you're building your team is to have 4 wide receivers through the first 7 rounds. And yeah, you get to this tier of Lab McConkey, Rashee Rice, Brian Thomas, Deontay Johnson, Christian Watson. And I'm with you, Dwayne. I have been buying back into Watson. Here's to hoping some of that offseason work to apparently get his legs closer to the same size helps those hamstrings stay healthier. 3 separate hammy injuries since entering the league. We've seen, the multi-touchdown upside when he is healthy. Please, injury gods, give us this one time. So hopefully it will get a better result. I mean, again, we still saw some nice games from Watson. Seemed like he was really coming on specifically in that Chiefs game before he got hurt. But it surprised me that Jordan Love, like passer rating when targeting all of his wide receivers and tight ends, everyone like Doubs, Kraft, Musgrave, Reed, Wicks, Melton, they were all between 109 and 124. Christian Watson at a lowly 69.8. So had the higher average target depth. There's a lot of things that go into that, but that did just surprise me because, again, you see all the big plays he is capable of producing when right. Dwayne, the projections have Jaden Reed leading the way, 101 targets with an extra nice boost on the ground. Packers are willing to give him, I believe, 11 total rush attempts last year. Then Romeo Doubs with 88, then Watson 87, then Wicks with 47. So I think most of the Wicks truthers would agree that Reed and Watson, when healthy, are going to be out there. Doubs is the guy that they're hoping he can take over. And I'll be honest, man, I don't see it. Look at those 2 playoff games last year. Doubs had 234 receiving yards. No other Packers wide receiver had more than 35. So just in your heart of hearts, Dwayne, 17 games, we turn injuries off for the season. Who scores more fantasy points, Romeo Doubs or Dontavian Wicks? And is it close?
Oh, man. I think it is Doubs because they like him. I think Wicks has the potential to be better, but I think I'm going Doubs. I get the playoff sample, but I'm just very leery of any small sample like that. And overall, like I think we know what Doubs is, at this point in his career. He's a nice possession receiver, but he's a wide receiver 3. He's not winning you a fantasy championship. Like I don't draft, like he could give you a spike week though. Like that's what those playoff games show you. This guy's capable of some really big spike weeks, especially with Jordan Love. I think that's the takeaway, but he's definitely not a guy that I'm going out of my way to target. Fine building him when I've got the stack set up.
That's fine. That's fine. I just see, some of these, Wicks is my highest drafted wide receiver. And it's like,
I don't understand that either.
Don't think
like, I get it, but I don't think he's shown enough to be like all in on a guy. I think a lot of it comes down to we're searching for anything because wide receivers go so early. And if you get burned, like Wicks is the guy that people feel like still has upside.
Again, we are drafting Jaden Reed as the one. Fun fact, last year only DK Metcalf, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, and George Pickens hit a faster top speed with the football in their hands than Jaden Reed. Fun player. We will see what year 2 has in store. Dwayne, similar to the Lions, a lot of continuity going on in Green Bay. Matt LeFleur and Adam Stenavich are back leading the offense. Last year, they were just 20th in terms of their pass play rate, just, throughout the season. We did see a shift, honestly, during the second half of the year, more play action, more shift in motion, a little bit more willingness to run the football though. And yeah, that can be a little bit, flimsy just based on game script and everything. But PFF's reigning 11th ranked offensive line, returns 4 starters. It seems like we should probably be getting, more of the same of what we saw from last year. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good coaching staff. They know how to push the right buttons. I don't really have anything to add. Like I think Green Bay has a really good scheme.
You know who else has a really good scheme and customer service and product? DraftKings, baby, our sponsors, who, we just adore over here because we have partnered with DraftKings Sportsbook. And right now, all new customers who bet just $5 will get $150 in bonus bets instantly. All you got to do is download the DraftKings app now and sign up using our promo code FANTASYLIFE. The crown is yours. So again, really fun. I'm personally a big fan of, just throwing out some MLB parlays, always riveting to then forget about it and then wake up in the morning and then check and see, how you just managed to lose your money in heartbreaking fashion. But sometimes you do happen to come away with a nice bank, and that always makes for a fun, quick look. But hey, the sports betting is not yet available in your state. Don't worry. DraftKings is the one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy, where you can join in on all the fun and have the shot to win cash prizes. And you can see Dwain and myself do just that. 9:30 a.m. Eastern on Fridays, where we go ahead into the best ball streets over at DraftKings, draft against each other and see what happens. So again, guys, code FantasyLife, bet just $5 on any wager and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code FantasyLife only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. All right, Dwain, for the first time in, a while, the Lions are the NFC North favorites, but sitting in second place are the Green Bay Packers, plus 195 to win the division. Win total is at 9.5. So is minus 135 juice on the over, and I'm going to take it, man. New defensive coordinator, Jeff Haffey, coming from, I believe, Boston College. They went to the college ranks. They had all the, kind of talent you want on this defense. It was 8 or 9 former first-round picks, but that was the issue. I mean, my God, they made Bryce Young look good for 60 minutes of football. How humiliating can that be in the year 2023? So the division, as much as we can say the Bears and Vikings are better, that's kind of the glass half full. The other side of things could be that they're, in a division with 2 rookie quarterbacks starting. So give me over 9.5 wins. I think we get more of the same from Jordan Love and company from the second half of the year. And even if the Lions still win the division, awfully good football team residing in Lambeau right now.
Yeah, I'm going with the over as well. I don't know that I would take it at these odds, but if I'm just straight up saying 9.5 wins, I think they're going to beat that. And obviously smart people have already taken that bet and moved the line. So, the odds aren't necessarily great anymore. But man, Jordan Love does have the kind of ceiling that really could relegate the rest of this division back to just seeing who can be second again, including the Lions. If Jordan Love is what we saw in the second half of last year, as good as the Lions are, the Packers are going to be better, just because, it comes down to the quarterback, man. And Jordan Love flashed those elite skills that could just make them so scary. And it's just not fair. I get it, guys. This team has had freaking Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. And if this guy goes and does this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Lions fans. I'm sorry.
Again, back-to-back weeks last year, they took down the Lions in Detroit on Thanksgiving and then went ahead and beat the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football in Lambeau as well. So ceiling is the roof for this Packers team. And kudos to Matt LeFleur, 13, 13, 13, 8, and 9 wins during his 5 years as head coach. So a couple more fantasy relevant players we want to talk about. And one, position battle, but I think both guys are going to end up playing. Maybe just a matter of who is healthy at the right time. So talking about the tight end position, of course, Dwain, we have Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, who honestly both did some really good things as a rookie. I mean, as great as this wide receiver room is, they really do also have 2 tight ends where Kraft can be a bit more of the yak specialist, also does some really good things as a run blocker. Musgrave, as we can tell by that, 7.4 yard ADOT, a bit more of the seam stretcher and a guy you can see, go downfield, preferably not, completely uncovered and left alone like the Cowboys decided to do in that game. So how do you weight, Dwain, what we saw kind of at the very end of last season where Musgrave got injured, he came back. We don't exactly know how healthy he was, but Kraft did really good things in Musgrave's absence, and accordingly, it was a bit more of a split 2 tight end committee down the stretch. Do you think we see that once Kraft is done, healing from his torn pec, or does it go back to the early season usage, which really did feature Musgrave as far and away the tight end one?
If Musgrave had shown more in that early season time, whenever he was the guy dominating the snaps and routes, I would say more Musgrave. Again, still a young player. I mean, he's only going into his second season. So I would give Musgrave the slight edge, but I'm with you. I think that this is going to be not a full-on rotation, but definitely enough where I could see Musgrave being stuck around that 60% route participation, and then you got plenty of other mouths. You're challenged with targets. There's other people that you're going to be getting the ball as well. So I'm not that crazy about clicking on Musgrave this season. I'm fine taking him. I'm mixing him in, but I'm not going out of my way. And if I totally get sniped at tight end, I don't mind mixing in some Tucker Kraft really late in best ball draft only. Obviously, you're in a season-long league. You're not touching Tucker Kraft.
I was feeling more willing to draft Musgrave for a little bit, and then I brought it up to you on our stream last Friday, and I was like, well, Tucker Kraft's got a torn pec, and you were like, well, Yeah, man. And what's going to happen when they're both healthy at the end of the season like they will be? It's probably going to be a rotation. And in that quick, 2 sentences, you pretty much ruined all my dreams about getting more Musgrave.
Now that means that guarantees Musgrave is going to go off. Be the tight end 5. That's all that means.
Hey, I'll say this, man. Dr. Jeff Mueller did give it a 5 to 6 month timeline. Allegedly occurred in May. Fun fact: Matt LeFleur also tore his pec during the same timeline while they were benching. So Matt LeFleur, badass, who also is continuing to put some
Just trying to
weight
be
up
like
there
Dan
on the
Campbell.
bench.
Look at this.
Just make sure you have a spotter, bro. Let's be careful now. Let's put up some weight, but let's just be careful, everyone. But yeah, I will say this, Dwayne. When I was going through the preview, I expected to be a little bit higher on Musgrave earlier in the season, which I still think he could have some booms, but I was surprised to see that even when combining these two guys' production, how mediocre it still was.
And remember, Musgrave didn't have a great college profile either. That was the thing we were most down on him about last year. He was a field stretcher in college, but never a high-end target earner.
On the season, Packers, one of only 12 teams with fewer than 100 targets to their tight ends, and they were just 20th in total tight end PPR points if we just want to go ahead and combine all parties involved. So wide receivers and arguably even the running backs are going to be featured first and foremost in this offense. Great real-life players, but as we see in fantasy land, when you have 2 or more tight ends regularly involved in your offense, rotating with each other, really hard for either of them to stand out too much in terms of the counting numbers. So, Dwayne, takes us to our potential sleeper on the Green Bay Packers. Rookie running back Marshon Lloyd. Maybe he's the RB2, maybe he's the RB3. A.J. Dillon is still hanging around, but Josh Jacobs, someone that, as we saw at the end of last season, missed some time. Zamir White came in and did some good things. How do you see this backfield looking behind Josh Jacobs? Maybe Lloyd could actually go in there and carve out a bigger role, but I don't want to completely write out Dillon, man. I don't think he's good at football. I understand that fact, but that's been true for years, and the Packers still have given him 200 plus touches in each of these past 3 years. If something happens to Jacobs, do you think Lloyd is someone where, oh man, he can take over the backfield, RB1 handcuff, or someone that's going to be stuck in a bit more of a committee than maybe we're anticipating?
I think you're just investing in, if it did go that way, like we've already seen what it looks like when you own A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon may be the one guy where we can say even volume doesn't save the guy. We've seen it. Of course, that would change. Ultimately, you would still like A.J. Dillon if you knew he was getting all the work. But, man, it's Lloyd is the guy that if he did get that role, if it did fall into his hands, I think we'd be a lot more excited. He's a guy that did a lot of baffling things in college. I think the elite athleticism and all those things were always on display, though. I mean, he's a guy that when you turn it on, you're like, whoa, made a guy miss. Oh, then another guy missed. And then you look up and you're like, oh, he got 2 yards. He could have just hit the hole and went for 8.
He fumbled again.
That's going to be the challenge with him. I don't know how well he is at reading defenses and doing what the coaches want, but the ability is definitely there. And we know with LeFleur, very willing to mix it up. Even after adjusting for injuries, the highest share LeFleur has ever given in any backfield is 61%. So there's a chance for standalone value. The NFL average running back one for a team gets 57%. So LeFleur is right there around that. I don't see him going overboard with Jacobs. There's also a chance you potentially get standalone value. I see Marshon Lloyd as being the most different from Josh Jacobs. So I think he's definitely the complementary back. The question does remain in, if something happened to Josh Jacobs, would he take all that work? I think I would still give him the nod, and I'm going to bet on that just because A.J. Dillon's been so bad. To your point, it could go the other way, though.
The reason why I've also been betting on Marshon Lloyd plenty at his RB45, pick 142 ADP is he has the theoretical 3-down RB toolkit, basically. Yeah. He's 5'9", 220 pounds, 92nd percentile BMI, and he's getting lauded for his pass catching already, man. I mean, Dane Brugler's comp, thicker Duke Johnson. He led all collegiate running backs in yards per reception last year. Only 13, but of those 13, you even actually saw him boasting an 8 out of, I believe, 3 yards. Good sign that he can be more than just a pure check down guy. So top 10 nationally, yards per carry, breakaway running percentage, and elusive rating among all running backs with at least 50 attempts. Really is an explosive player. And yeah, man, when we have, again, Packers OC Adam Stenovich already saying I would like to get him out there as much as possible. He's got a skill set that's a little bit different than AJ's as far as his speed. Even if we don't see him take over the full 3-down role, again, what Packers RB really has had that, I would anticipate him being able to step into what we saw Aaron Jones be, and that is that explosive pass catching complement, which is the running back we want ahead of someone like A.J. Dillon. So good stuff there, Mr. Dwain.
My most drafted running back, 27%.
You could have started with that.
Yeah, I was pulling it up when you went to I had to make sure I was telling the truth.
He is up there for me as well. Have you been taking a lot of Ty Chandler in that range as well? I've loved double tapping them sometimes, especially when
I do
only
take Ty
have
Chandler,
like
but
2 running backs.
Marshon, yeah, Lloyd's still well ahead for me. I do take some Ty Chandler, but they're not close. Ty Chandler, anyway, yeah, they're not close.
Lloyd is my 5th most drafted running back. So we are both fans. Yeah, maybe could just told you guys that. We will watch the film and get better. Dwain takes us to the end. And as always, we are going to be comping the Packers to a TV or movie character. I am going to roll with Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore. And I mean this as a compliment. Remember, guys, as much as Shooter may be a little bit of a dickhead out there, he was an ultra successful guy, always racking up wins during the regular season. He just couldn't quite get it done when it counted, win that gold jacket, even though they seem destined to get there. I mean, the fact the Packers only have 1 Super Bowl since, 1997 or whatever Favre got his really is wild, considering how many, just double-digit win seasons and great offenses they continue to put out there. So suddenly, out of nowhere, the laughingstock Lions or Happy Gilmore in this scenario have emerged as a heavy threat to the new sheriff in town. Can Shooter / the Packers get it done when it matters? Will this once again be a great regular season team that falls short in the playoffs? We shall see. So, Dwain, over to you.
Game of Thrones, man. I'm going with Jon Snow. He didn't know he was going to be the chosen one. He had to wait behind Aaron Rodgers, obviously. But I mean, it's Jordan Love. And, winter is coming. House Stark. I mean, come on. It's Green Bay. Nobody loves. I mean, I hate the Packers because what they do to the Cowboys. But I love turning on a game in the winter, in December, all that snow falling. So I will go with Game of Thrones. And, House Stark, eventually does rise back to the top.
Jon Snow and Shooter.
Even though it's a Targaryen, really. But oops, sorry, spoiler.
Oh my goodness, I'm 1 episode behind on House of Dragon, Dwain. So don't be getting too.
I didn't do that. I didn't go there.
I appreciate it. Just checking it. But I want to thank you guys for tuning into another edition of the Fantasy Life Podcast. We are ripping through each and every one of these team previews exactly where you're listening to us right now. So you can also find them in written form over on FantasyLife.com, along with Dwain's award critically acclaimed, projections. Also our team Fantasy Life Consensus Ranks. So free newsletter. It's pretty sweet. You should subscribe and check it out if you do not already. So for Dwain, for producer Matt, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning into the Fantasy Life Podcast. Until next time, take care, everybody.